Hi, everybody. Welcome to Two Funny Astronauts. Or at least we certainly hope so.
Welcome to our show. I'm Mike Massimino, and I'm here with my good friend. What's your name again?
Garrett
Reisman.
Yeah.
And
I'm Garrett.
so Two Funny Astronauts. This is our very first show, Garrett. How do you feel about it?
I'm nervous. I'm terrified. I don't perform well under stress. I'm
We're
sweating
no longer
over here.
astronauts, so that's okay. It would be a problem in our previous profession, but now that's okay.
Yeah.
But this is our show. As Garrett said, Two Funny Astronauts, and we want to be really clear. We are not claiming to be funny. We are not claiming to be funny people at all. We are saying we are funny astronauts. So hold us against that standard, because for
It's a low bar.
astronauts we are hilarious. But for regular people, maybe not so much. But we were very funny. We used to crack each other up as astronauts, and we were responsible for cracking up the entire astronaut office. It was just the two of us, and we would crack up each other. It was a lot of responsibility. But now,
You know how like in every movie they have a guy that's like just there for comic relief. That's why they hired us, right? Because they needed somebody around just so it didn't get too boring, right? That was the whole point. I think that's how we
what
got
it was.
selected.
Someone needed to be funny, and we were the funny astronauts. And now we are funny former astronauts, and so we don't have our astronauts colleagues to entertain any longer as much. So we're trying to entertain the general public. We'll see how this goes. But this is our first try at this, and I'm just really thrilled because Garrett and I speak a couple times on the phone, and I think the way this came up was just our conversations. People would overhear us and say, "You guys should have a podcast." If my sister or whoever was listening, someone would overhear us talking on the phone. That's pretty funny stuff. So we'll see how it goes if we can keep going with that sort of theme here in this podcast.
Mass,
so thanks for listening.
Hey, how do you think it's going so far?
So far, I think probably not very good, but who's to know? You and I are having fun. That's the main thing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right.
So that's
Right,
it.
so-
This is our first show.
It's our first show. So, Mass,
Yep.
tell me, what did you do? When you were at NASA, what was?
Yeah,
what
it's a
was
good place to start. I was an astronaut for 18 years. I was selected as an astronaut in 1996, and I was on 2 missions. Both of my missions were to the Hubble Space Telescope. I was a spacewalker, basically a repair person for the telescope. And Garrett, what did you do at NASA?
Sorry, I was just you said Hubble. It got me a little pissed off. Yeah, you have to understand that the Hubble. You guys get all that extra money. You had all that special treatment. Your guys are no offense, Mass, but you guys were kind of prima donnas over there.
No offense
with the
taken.
Hubble.
That's the way we like it. We like we like the special attention. And when you mean by money, it wasn't in our pocket, just to be clear. We all got paid the same government rate. The money we had was in stuff like equipment and PR tools and stuff like that we had.
Yeah.
We wasn't, but we were very well. It was space flight the way it was supposed to be. Yes, we were treated
Right.
very well, better than everybody else, and that's what we expected. And I think it was appropriate.
Wait. Is it true? Tell me, is it true? I heard, and I think that you guys, when you would come out of your practice runs for spacewalking training, that you would have like a professional masseuse give you a massage. Is that true?
That's not true, but that should have been the case. I wish I would have thought of that. They would have done anything for us because.
Was it maybe?
We were dealing with. So just the reason that for all that was is the Hubble Space Telescope was a very expensive piece of equipment, billions of dollars, and NASA was very proud of it. And we had to keep it working.
Cheap.
What's
the
that?
space station is cheap, right? That was like basically free. We have billions of dollars. You know how much that thing cost?
They were. I'm sure. Space station is very valuable and. But I wasn't gonna go here, but I am now because it's too late. It's in my head. My friend Drew Feustel was asked, "What is the difference?" Cut that name. Maybe we don't want his name out there. But an astronaut who had been on Hubble was going to go spacewalk on Space Station. It wasn't me that was asked this question. So I never got to say spacewalk on Space Station. And he was asked, "What's the difference between spacewalking on Hubble and spacewalking on Space Station?" And he said, "Well, with Hubble, I felt like I was doing brain surgery. On Space Station, I feel like I'm being trained to do landscaping." Now, he said that
What?
once, and he never said that again because his crewmates wanted to murder him. So that was the last time that line was ever used until now.
Landscaping. I'm
I
glad
don't
you're
think
not going to
that's
mention.
really true,
I'm glad you're not going to mention Drew Feustel's name.
Yeah.
That's really good that you took that
the
out.
guy that said that,
not,
my good friend,
let's not drag him into this.
who's the assistant chief of the office. We are going to have to cut that, Jason. We can't
No,
get
we're
him in
keeping
trouble.
that in. All right, so
It's in.
So yeah, I had a couple ex-Hubble guys, or at least one. I did a spacewalk with Mike Good, and he was a Hubble guy, and we used to tease him mercilessly about that all the time. We were like,
Yeah.
hey, because we were going up to the space station, we were on Atlantis, this STS-132, and we would be like, hey, Mike, when are we doing our IMAX movie? How come you got one on the Hubble? How come we don't have one? So it was kind of a thing. He used to come to SpaceX. So by the way, I'm supposed to tell a little bit. So I did 2 missions, both to the space station. Mike over here did 2 missions up to the Hubble. And then I went off to work for SpaceX, and I was there for 7 years working with Elon Musk. I was at NASA for 13 years. But when I was at SpaceX, Mike Good was still working for NASA, and he would come to work with us. And we used to have this barista station with froyo, and basically we put all the sugar and caffeine into the employees that we could, right? We just juice them up, and then they would buzz around and get the work done.
Better than putting it in
they
the
had a
rocket
menu,
ship.
and it was like, what's that?
Better than putting it in the rocket ship. Go.
Yeah, and right. And then the menu at the barista had like all these different things, and it was all alliteration, right? So it was like lunar lemonade, I can't remember all the different ones, but there was Hubble hot chocolate, and I was like, no, we're not doing any Hubble. And so I made her change it right before Mike came in, because he was all excited, like, oh, Garrett, they got Hubble hot chocolate here in the lobby. I'm like, no, they don't get it. And I said, it's Hypergol hot chocolate. You change that. And I used my management clout as an executive at SpaceX to change the name of the hot chocolate and get rid of that Hubble. Okay, no Hubble. So anyway.
So, you started complaining about Hubble. Sounds like you're a bit jealous. That's what it sounds to me. You're
No.
like, hey, why don't we get a movie? Why don't we get this? There's a little bit of jealousy there. So yeah, I can understand it though. We were treated very well.
I'm totally fine with it.
And Mike Good, who
right,
you're referring to, I got to spacewalk with. Bueno was his nickname, because we're very creative with nicknames at NASA. Last name Good. So yeah, you got to spacewalk with him, and you also wasn't Linehan on one of your missions? Did Linehan?
Yeah.
On your first mission?
I did my first spacewalk with Rick, yeah.
There you go. So he was another Hubble guy. He was on my first flight, so I got to fly with both of them. I didn't get to spacewalk with Rick, but I did get to spacewalk with Bueno. So
surrounded by
anyways, good stuff. So that's where we ended up. That's the stuff we did at NASA. We flew in space a couple times, did spacewalks, and the space station was really. I wish I would have had a chance to go there, but that didn't work. But I got to go to Hubble, which was great too. But so what? Why don't we, we talk about space travels and things we got to do in space, but what about, how did this start? We usually don't talk about that. I'm taking this opportunity because as astronauts, we talk about like spaceships and what we're doing here and there. But how did this actually start for you, Garrett? How did you first get interested as a little kid, I assume, or somewhere along the line that you wanted to try to be an astronaut?
I was, I was very interested. I was always fascinated by anything that had to do with rockets or traveling in space. I used to watch a movie. I had a Super 8 movie projector. I used to watch. That's how old I am. And I used to watch the films of Apollo 11. I used to watch those mission highlights over and over, see Neil and Buzz walking around on the moon. And I was fascinated by it. And I read every book in my elementary school library that had anything to do with airplanes or rockets. But then... I never thought, like, if you asked me what I was going to be, I don't know about you, Mass, but if you asked me what I was going to be when I grow up, even when I was in high school, I never would have said astronaut, even though I was fascinated by that stuff, because I didn't think I could actually do it. I didn't think it was actually possible. And part of the reason was when I was watching those Apollo missions, all those guys I was seeing up there walking on the moon, they were all test pilots, okay? And I have a mom who we'll talk about throughout this podcast, I'm sure. But
I know your mom very well. As an aside, I was Garrett's family escort, and his mom needed her own escort, which ended up being me. Everyone else had to fend for themselves. But I was family escort for Garrett's crew on one of his missions, and I got to know and love Mrs. Reisman very much. Please tell her I said hi. She's a terrific lady.
I think you just did. Because she's going to be.
Hello.
If there's one
She's
person who's
probably
going to
the one
watch this
listening.
thing, it's her. I think we got one guaranteed listener for this podcast, and it's my mom. So she'll hear it. Don't worry. But one thing amongst the many things about her, one thing is she's scared of flying. And I don't mean like flying on the space shuttle or flying like an X-15. I mean like she's scared of flying on United. Okay. And so the idea that I was going to grow up and be a test pilot, that just was not going to happen. I do remember toying with that idea, like when I was in college on Parents' Weekend. We're in this restaurant in Philadelphia, and it's Parents' Weekend. So there's like a family-style Moroccan restaurant. It's full, a whole giant room full of families with their kids, And I tell my mom, like, hey, I'm thinking about joining the Air National Guard to become a fighter pilot as a hobby. And she's like, and she freaked out, right? She totally freaks out. She lost it, and she starts yelling at me, and then she starts like soliciting the other parents in the room, like, would you let your child do this? No, of course not. It's like, and it's like so embarrassing. I'm turning red. I knew some of the other students in the room. It was terrible. So I would have told you in high school that I was going to be like a doctor or an engineer. I was always interested in the STEM stuff, the science, physics, and math. But I never would have said astronaut until near the end of my time as an undergrad. I got a hold of some of the bios of some of the people that NASA had just selected and found that they weren't all test pilots. There were some scientists in there, engineers, medical doctors. I remember seeing Leroy Chow. Leroy Chow was one of the guys, and Ellen Ochoa were in that Air and Space magazine article. And I'm like, yeah, they're not test pilots. So I started thinking, hey, maybe this is possible. And that's when I got serious about it. But it wasn't until my final year as an undergrad.
It was good.
How about you? Did you always want to do it?
Yeah, I did as from a little kid, but just to follow up, at least going those ways, you could trick your mom. She wouldn't know. She wouldn't know that like, no, I'm not flying at all, Mom. I'm going straight to the spaceship. But she didn't have to know about that. And just so people get an idea of what your mom is like at your landing. I think it was your second flight on your landing. And we were waiting by I was with her and all the other families. There was maybe one other astronaut there as an escort, and all these families. And it was the tower, the tower where the control tower for the for the shuttle landing facility is within view. It's a couple hundred yards down the runway, and we're out on some viewing stand. And your mom's not very tall, if I remember, right, Garrett? She's kind of she's kind of little.
Yeah.
How tall? She's like 5 foot tall or something. She's not. She's kind of little.
She's 4 foot something.
I think she was having trouble seeing, and she's like, "Mike, I can't see anything." Oh, I'm sorry. I could. I don't know what to say. She goes, "Can we go up there?" And she points to the tower. I go, "I don't know. That's the control tower." And I go, "Why not, Ms. Reisman? Let's give it a try." So there's a space shuttle coming into land. It's not like a regular airport. You probably never get into a regular airport tower, but we had clearance because there's a lot of people that guarding the place, and I was able to get through because I'm an astronaut. And I kind of ring the bell. I was like, "Hey, I got Mrs. Reisman here. Can we come up?" And they go, "Sure." So we ended up going up. We took they didn't let us in the control room, but we got to sit on the little balcony on the outside there. And your mom and I watched you land, and it was pretty cool. I felt kind of bad about it because I always wanted to do something like that, and I used your mom as an excuse. Like Matt, get out of here. Well, I've got Mrs. Reisman, and her son is coming back to Earth. So, but that was your mom, that's where we watched your landing. So. No one was going to say no to Ms. Reisman that day. So I think she'd be very tough to convince to let you go become a fighter pilot.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. Yeah. And but I eventually ended up going off to graduate school, and then eventually actually I got called down for an interview. But before I talk about that, what was your experience like when you were a kid? Were you one of these kids like say I'm gonna be an astronaut when I grow up? Or?
Yeah, I'm a little older than you. I was born in '62. You were born in like '68, right? What year you were born then? And so I was 6 years old going on 7 when they landed on the moon. And that's what got me interested, seeing those guys on. So I was like, Neil Armstrong was my hero. And then I found out about the test pilot thing. And as I got to be about 8, I was like, I can never become an astronaut. I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of just about everything. You know, I grew up in my neighborhood was a little tough, and I was kind of running scared most of the time. And I didn't like heights. I still don't like heights, which is yes, it is a problem at times. But I didn't like going fast even. You know, astronauts had to go fast and test pilots. Even on my bike, I was always slow. I was like, let's go a little slower, guys. What's the rush? Even driving a golf cart nowadays, no one wants to go golfing with me. Like, if I drive the cart, it only lasts like 1 or 2 holes. Like, let me drive this thing. We're never going to finish. It's not so much I'm a slow golfer. I'm a slow driver. It takes a long time to get around the place. So, these things just made me realize I'm never going to, this isn't for me. But similar to you, when I was in college, actually, is when the shuttle started flying, and I started finding out the astronauts weren't just test pilots, and I thought, oh, maybe this is something that I could do. So, but what I did is I did go. I didn't do anything until I got out of college about it. And when I got out of college, I remember asking telling my mom that I was still interested in the space program. I went to see the movie The Right Stuff, which is about the original astronauts, and I read the book. And I remember with like your mom. My mom was a little bit different, I guess. She was very nervous too. The Italian version of your mom, maybe, but she was from Brooklyn. But I remember telling when I was in my 20s, now out of college, I was interested in maybe doing something in the space program. And so, my mom used to go through the newspaper like heavy when we used to get the Newsday newspaper in the house. And my mom would not, there was no internet back then. So everything came out of that newspaper. My mom would attack it. She wouldn't read it. She would attack that newspaper. She'd cut up all of the coupons. She would find out what's going on. Was there anything interesting happening? What was going on here? And she would just attack that thing and cut it up and give stuff to the neighbors and our relatives. She would attack a newspaper. We also used to get the Long Island Catholic in the house, and she would use that to do like movie ratings to see what we were allowed to watch. That thing, they didn't let us watch any. Every movie was bad. Even like Bambi, you weren't allowed to watch with the law. So I never got to go anywhere or do anything because of that newspaper. But the Newsday, she would go through this thing. So she came up with this idea. She says, Mike, after I told her this about a week later, she said, there's going to be a Space Fest at the local aviation museum. So the local aviation, it was called the Cradle of Aviation Museum. And she goes, maybe you can go there and meet people who are interested in the space program, make some new friends. And I was like, okay. I was like 23 when this was happening. I'd been out of school for about a year. So and no one wanted to go with me. Like my friends were like, are you out of your mind? We're not going to the Space Fest. So I drive over there by myself and I go to the Space Fest and they have like all these different tables set up. So one of the tables is the Civil Air Patrol. And I go up to the Civil Air Patrol table, thinking I can learn something. This looks interesting, maybe related to flying or something. There's a kid back there. I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Mario. I'll never forget this kid. And he's dressed up like he's an Air Force pilot. So I go, this is the kid to talk to. So I started asking, what do you do? And he says, we fly airplanes to help people. What's that?
Was it Mario Runco?
No, it wasn't Mario Runco. Mario Runco, by the way, folks, he's from the Bronx, but he was an astronaut. But I don't know how. And Mario was not this kid. Mario's much older.
Mass, save it because Mario Runco. I think that could be podcast episode number 5. We'll do a whole episode on him.
Podcast episode number 5 and 6. Have you seen Mario lately? So Mario's quite a character. But Mario Runco is actually an inspiration for me because he's from the Bronx. He was a cop for a while. He was a New Jersey State Trooper for a while. Then he joined the Navy, and that set him on his path to becoming an astronaut. But very funny guy. But this kid named Mario, I remember talking to him, and I was asking him questions, and he's saying how he's learning to fly an airplane, and he wanted to be an astronaut one day. I go, really? What are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to learn how to fly now. I'm going to fly with the Civil Air Patrol. Then I'm going to go to the Air Force Academy. And I'm going to learn how to fly jets. I'm going to become a test pilot. Then I'm going to become an astronaut. I'm like, wow, this kid has got. I'm like, how old are you? And the kid's like, I'm 14. Like, here I am taking advice from this 14-year-old kid. I go, I'm already too late. I didn't know how to do any of these things. I don't know how to fly a plane. I was already too. I already went to college. I can't go to the Air Force Academy. I'm sunk. And then I turned my head, and there was another group of people. And they were like more my age. In fact, like my age or a little bit older. They were like in their 20s and 30s. So, all right, maybe I'll see what they have to offer. This kid's on his way. I don't want to stand a chance. So I'm looking for maybe a plan B. And I go up to these other people, and the name of the club was like the Space Club or the Space Farers, something like that. We want to go to space or something. So I said, what do you guys do? And the guy's there behind the thing goes, oh, we're a group. We want to all go to space. I go, that's the group for me. I want to join. How do I join this group? I want to go to space. So they say, all right, fill this thing out. And I go, do you have meetings or anything? They go, yeah, come to our meeting. And they're having a meeting at somebody's house. So I convinced my girlfriend. No one again wanted to go with me. I was a little nervous. So I convinced my girlfriend to go to this thing. And we go to this meeting. And what it was, the reason that they wanted to go to space wasn't for like science or exploration. They wanted to get away from Earth. And it wasn't like they wanted to get out. They just wanted to leave. And like going to Europe wasn't good enough. It wasn't like they wanted to travel. They wanted to leave the planet. They didn't like it. They needed somewhere else to go. It was like a cult. These people wanted to leave. And all they did during this meeting was talk about how they were going to leave. And I'm like, how are you going to get there? Don't you need a spaceship? And like, oh, someone's going to develop a spaceship and we're going to volunteer. And I go, really? I go, where are you going to go? And they go, oh, someone will build a space colony and they're going to need someone to go. We're going to be the ones. And I'm like, I don't really know if this is a well-cooked plan. And they kept eating dumplings. I remember it was like a Chinese dumpling festival going on. And like, you guys, if you want to get off the ground, you better stop eating. All they were doing was eating and talking about someone's going to have to, this is not. And I remember leaving that meeting and the door closing behind us. And I look at my girlfriend. I go, what do you think? And she says, I think you've lost your mind, is what she said. So that wasn't going to work. So I figured the only way you're really going to go to space.
It almost kind of sounds like you got sucked into like an Amway meeting or something. Like these
That's
guys
what
are going to have you.
It was some
like a
wacky
pyramid
kind
scheme.
of. I don't know what it was. It was just a bunch of crazy people. So I realized that the only way to do it is to go get more education and apply to NASA and see if you can make that work. Because these other schemes weren't going to work for me. But that's what it was like, just not knowing what to do. And my mom finding this article to try to help me. That was my first step.
I think going off to Columbia and becoming an engineer and then MIT was probably a better plan than like hanging out with the cult, eating the dumplings. But what about that kid Mario? I want to know.
As hard as that was going to be to go through grad school and apply and all that to try to become an astronaut, that was I thought the better way to go. So for you, you went.
Wait. I want to know one thing.
Yeah.
What happened to that Mario kid that had it all wired? The kid that had it all figured out?
Man. I don't know. And that's another thing that's interesting, Garrett, is that when I was trying to become an astronaut, or even years past then, doing stuff like being an intern at NASA, I would come across people that were telling me, they were going to become astronauts. I go, really? How are you going to manage that? And they would tell me their plan, and I'd be like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do. And none of those people panned out. I think, there's something to it that, there's I think certain part of it was you need to be a team player, and I'm sure that little kid Mario was. I don't know what happened to him, but he seemed like a nice kid. But a lot of people, you're thinking they're going to just sign up for it, and you're not. It's a very competitive thing, and anyone who gets picked is lucky.
I'm worried that this Mario kid's might be really pissed at you. Then he might be like, well, how come that guy had no idea what he was doing and they picked him and not me? I'm thinking that he might have your picture on like a dartboard in his basement. You ever worry about this? You ever stay up at night worrying about this?
No, I'm not. I don't. And I think the reason is because when I met Mario, I am pretty sure that as impressed I was with him, he was in the other polar opposite, unimpressed with me. I'm sure he just put me in, the list of people that were there. He put me in the I'm like some grandma, something like. I just was a faded memory in that guy's mind. I don't think he would remember it all. No.
Wow. Well, I remember when I started getting a little more serious about it, that you could find out a certain time and when given your location when the shuttle was going to like fly over your head, right? So you can look this up on the web or whatever. And you could find out, like in Philadelphia, at like 5 o'clock in the morning, the shuttle was going to be making a pass, and you could see it. And I had never done this, but I wanted to try. And I had this girlfriend at the time that was trying to be really supportive of my. I told her like, hey, maybe it's possible I could become an astronaut. I'm serious. I'm starting to think seriously about this. And she was trying to really support my dream, right? And so I'm like, I was going to pull an all-nighter working on the student project. And I was like, I'm still going to be up at 5 a.m. I'm going to go up to the top of the high-rise dorms, and I'll, hopefully see it flying over Philadelphia at 5 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, well, I got to go to work, but I can get up early and be there and see it with you. I think that'd be fun. It'd be great. And I was like, oh, that's really, really nice. But you don't have to do that. I mean, you got to be at work at 8. Why get up so early? You're going to be tired all day. You don't have to. And she's like, no, I really want to be there with you. I want to see it. And I was like, okay. So she shows up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're up there and we're looking out the window, and we're looking, and there it was, the shuttle. I saw it. I'm like, there it is. There it is. You see it, that bright light right there. And it's going over and it's going over. And I'm watching. I'm dumbfounded because I never saw this before. I didn't even know you could see this thing. And I thought that was so cool. And I'm watching it go and I'm watching it go. And then, it only lasts a couple minutes and then it's gone. and so I was like, wow, that was great. And I got my arm around her and she's going, yeah, it's really awesome. And she's still staring straight ahead. I look at her and I realize at that moment, she was staring at a star the whole time. She never saw the shadow, right? She was just staring at some star. She missed the whole thing. And she was going to, after getting up early and everything. And so I didn't want to tell her, how do you, I figured it'd break her heart. No, you don't tell her. So I stood there with her and I'm like, yeah, it's really beautiful, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, it's so cool. And we stared at this star for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, you think that's enough? And she's like, yeah, that's enough. I'm like, okay, let's go.
At least
and so to this day, she still doesn't know. And maybe I guess she might now, but she doesn't know that she was staring at a star the whole time. Oops.
Well, at least it was a star. It could have been like, the light on the 7-Eleven or something like that. Oh, look at that. Yeah. At least she was looking at a star. She's kind of in the general area. That's pretty good.
It wasn't that far off, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.